Hello, everybody. Just coming on here early today, Wednesday. We had a few things at work here that we had to take care of, which caused me to have to go to lunch at noon as opposed to 1 o'clock. And so I'm broadcasting early, an hour early today. I apologize if it's throwing off your schedule, but it's what I had to do. So if you're not able to catch this video, you can go ahead and catch it on my YouTube page and on my Facebook page. But I'm going to go ahead and get started here just to get going. I want to put in a quick prayer. Hey, babe, thank you for joining. I had to go early today because they forced us to go to lunch at 12 as opposed to 1, so I couldn't go at 1:15. So I'm doing it early today, and hopefully people can join in as we go, but thank you. And so just want to say a quick prayer. Father, we thank you so much for this time. We ask you, Lord, to please bless this time again. Help our hearts, Father. Open up our hearts to learn and see this material and learn how to apply it to our lives. We ask you, Father, in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So just to do a quick recap of what we've been talking about. Again, the book is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. We've covered chapter 1, which spoke about what happens to love after the wedding. We covered chapter 2, which deals with keeping the love tank full. We covered chapter 3, which speaks about the falling in love experience. We've covered, we're actually on chapter 4. Actually, no, we covered chapter 4, which was the first love language, which had everything to do with the words we use and how we use them. The first love language it deals with people and those who learn and feel the love the most through the words that are spoken, which I think that goes for everybody. But there are those who need words more than other people because of their upbringing, because of their experiences, because of how their love tank was shaped through their upbringing. Words is what speaks to them the most. And so we covered chapter 4, and within chapter 4, within love language number 1, which was words, we covered words of affirmation. We covered encouraging words. We covered kind words. We covered humble words. And then we spoke a little bit about dialects. Hey, Bernice, thank you for joining. I'm glad you could make it. I had to go to lunch early today, so I'm doing an early broadcast. I'm glad you're able to make it here. And so we covered various dialects within the first love language, which is words. And then we moved on to chapter 5, which is love language number 2, which we're speaking about right now, and that has everything to do with quality time. Quality time. And so, Monday we covered the subject of togetherness within the love language of quality time. And what does togetherness mean? What does it look like? And we pointed out a few things about just because you're in proximity to each other, just because you're in the same room, doesn't mean you're necessarily spending time together. You might be physically together, but you're not emotionally together and involved at that time. And so the love language of quality time requires an element of togetherness that is focused on each other as opposed to just being in the same place at the same time. So that was the first section under quality time. And then we touched up on a second section of quality time, which deals with the quality of your conversation. So togetherness deals with making sure you're focused on each other. The quality of your conversation deals with making sure that you are listening and paying attention to the conversation in a way that communicates love, because you are actually practicing the listening skills, the understanding skills, and communicating not just that you understand, but that you care and that you love enough to spend time listening and then respond in correspondence to the conversation that is being, that is being spoken about at that moment with your spouse. And so there's a togetherness and then a quality of conversation. And today I want to finish up with the quality of conversation and then move into the next subject, which is learning to talk. Just going to get a little more extensive because there's a little bit more to touch up on. And so I'm probably going to finish this lesson on Friday. I was planning to finish it all up by today, but it doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to accomplish that. So, but that's okay because we're going to touch up on some really good stuff. And just to finish up and wrap up the quality of conversation within the love language number 2, which is quality time. I wanted to conclude this portion of quality of conversation. I'm sorry, let's see here. Yeah, quality of conversation. By pointing out a few points and a few things that we can do and begin to practice and exercise, which will help us strengthen the quality of our conversation that we have with our spouse. And everything within the quality of conversation has to do more with how we listen, how good we listen, how intent we listen, how much we listen with our heart as opposed to our emotions. And so 5 things that the book points out that we can start doing to help us out with our listening skills is, number 1 is maintaining eye contact when your spouse is talking. Making sure you're looking into each other's eyes, or at least paying attention to her face, and you're not wandering around. What this does, maintaining eye contact, what it doesn't allow you to wander off. I'm so used to doing other stuff while I'm in the middle of a conversation, and Ilana's kind of like, no, look at me. No, look at me. And I want to listen from the bathroom. I want to listen from the room. I want to listen. Babe, I'm listening to you over the kitchen. And she's like, no, I'll wait till you get back over here, because there's something about listening with your with your face and your attention and your eyes to the person who's speaking that says, hey, you have my undivided attention, okay? I'm not thinking and allowing my mind to wander into other things and what I need to do, what I'm doing now. My focus and my 100% is on you right now, and that conveys the message of love as well. I know a lot of us are multitaskers, but this is a very important element in our relationships. It's not a good idea to multitask while your spouse is trying to talk to you about something that is near and dear to her heart, or that matters a lot, because you will not successfully convey the message of love. And so maintain eye contact. Why? Because it keeps you from letting your mind wander off. Number 2, listen to your spouse and do and doing something else at the same time. This is, again, goes right in hand with this. If you're not listening attentively, if that's not the message you're sending, then there's always that chance where you're more involved and your attention's more involved in what you're doing and not on what you're listening to. And I am the first to confess, Alana will tell you, I need practice in this area, because I'm always trying to, I'm scatterbrained and I'm trying to do this and that and this at the same time. And by the time Alana checks back with me and says, babe, so did you hear what I said? I'm just like, yeah, babe, sure. And then she makes me repeat it, and I'm like, you said. And so don't be doing things, repeat it. Don't be doing other things while your spouse is trying to conversate with you. Maintain eye contact and sit down and pay attention, because undivided attention is very, very important to conveying the message of love. Number 3, listen for feelings. This is really, really important, guys. This is one of the biggest learning things for me, is learning how to listen to people's feelings. What's the big deal with listening for feelings? What does that mean? Well, what it means is that when you listen for people's feelings, you're listening beyond what you're seeing. Okay, people become really good at putting on masks. People become really good talkers. Okay, I consider myself a really good talker. Okay, and I can put on a certain appearance while I'm talking because I want people to see what I'm saying and not what I'm showing. Okay, but if you notice, if you pay attention to emotions and feelings during a person's conversation, regardless of their body language, you can sniff out what is really behind what they're saying. You can sniff out what they're feeling behind what they're saying if you pay attention and try to listen for feelings. And so there's a message beyond the emotions within the conversation. Okay, now if somebody's talking to you, your wife is mad and they're yelling at you, or they flipped out, and you're stopping and you're listening for feelings as opposed to just the way she's talking to you. When you listen for feelings, you don't get wrapped up in being offended by how she's talking to you, maybe disrespectful at that moment or unloving, or he's talking to you. If you listen for feelings, you go beyond the offense at the surface level and you listen for the heart of the matter. When you listen for feelings, you listen for the heart of the matter. And so you're able to successfully sniff out what your wife or your husband is actually really trying to say behind that hurtful expression of words that they're saying right now at the moment. And so number 3, listen for feelings. Number 4, observe body language. Very important. There is a comparison that we should be doing when we're listening to our spouse, when we're paying attention to the conversation, is make sure that the body language is matching the conversation. Okay? Ask yourself, is what she's saying actually matching the body language, the expressions on her body? What do I mean? There's fist clenching. There's tensing up of the body. There's facial expressions that people make when they're really agitated, aggravated, angry, and they might pass something off as just forget it, something like that. But you can tell in the expression, tight lips or clenched fist, that they're actually angry. They're disappointed at that moment. And so when you pay attention to body language, you're also listening for feelings, and you don't just go with, oh, nothing, forget it. Because a lot of us, especially men, will take that, nothing, forget it, and we'll go with it. Okay, fine. You said forget it. I'm moving on with my day. But if you're going to be a loving, attentive husband, no, you don't forget it. You try to find a way to infiltrate the fact that you just recognize she's saying forget it because she's not wanting to talk about it right now. But she's obviously bothered. She's obviously angry. You've obviously done something to aggravate her. And so with the love that you have for her or him, try to find a way to infiltrate and touch and connect with the feelings behind what's really going on behind the body language, in a loving way, in a patient way. This is important. This is so important because it's the thing that helps bridge the gap between the miscommunications and helps with people's ability to release and process their feelings and emotions. Something that we're going to touch up on right here that I think is a major contributor to a lot of the stress, anxiety, and just intolerance that we develop in our relationships, which cause us to just be done, which cause us to just go over the edge, which cause us to just no longer want to involve or invest any more of our time and energy in the relationship, because we have for so long just welt up things inside of us because the other person has not taken the time to observe our body language, listen for our feelings, maintain contact, and employ the tools needed to effectively listen, and give that quality of conversation. And then number 5 is refuse to interrupt. Man, this is one of the biggest things. If we're going to be good listeners and good communicators, we need to make up in our minds that when we're speaking to our spouse, and anybody for that matter, if you're ever going to fall into the category of a good listener, you need to learn, I need to learn how not to interrupt. Refuse to interrupt. And how do you do that? You need to take control of your emotions and your feelings, and by employing these other 4 methods, by maintaining eye contact, listen to their feelings, listen to their body language, don't interrupt. Don't be doing other things. What you're doing is you're putting aside your emotions and feelings, which are usually the ones that cause you to interrupt the conversation. When you're putting your own thoughts and feelings aside, you're no longer in danger of interrupting, because you're not trying to think of the defensiveness that you want to develop. You're not thinking about your argument that you want to present. You're not thinking about the insults you want to lash back with, because you don't like what you're hearing from the other person. And so refuse, make that up in your mind. Refuse to interrupt, no matter how you feel about what they're saying, about how they're saying it, no matter what emotion is running to you, no matter if you have the right answer or you're winning the conversation or you're right. If you refuse to interrupt, you'll get your opportunity to convey your portion, convey the message that you're right at your chance to speak, and you'll do it with love. What happens is when you refuse to interrupt is you stop arguments from starting. You stop the other person's ability to become defensive, okay? And you stop the desire to insult, because you're so aggravated and angry that you keep interrupting me. Guys, I know that I have failed majorly in this area of my life because of what we've been taught and brought up with, the conversation and the skills that we've been taught with. And we'll touch about that a little bit more. Okay, so that was an ending part of quality of conversation. But quality of conversation goes on. It goes on to the next point, which is learning how to talk. Okay, learning how to talk. Man, this is such a broad subject. I can go on for days on this subject, but I'm just going to touch up on basic things that I found in the book. But I want to read this portion from the book that Gary Chapman talks about, that really resonates and really brings out the meat of this specific subject of learning how to talk. It says, many adults grew up in homes where the expression of thoughts and feelings was not encouraged but condemned. To request a toy was to receive a lecture on the sad state of our family finances. The child went away feeling guilty for having the desire, and he quickly learned not to express his desires. When he expressed anger, the parents responded with harsh, condemning words. Thus, the child learned that expressing angry feelings is not appropriate. If the child was made to feel guilty for expressing disappointment at not being able to go to the store with his father, he learned to hold his disappointment inside. By the time we reach adulthood, many of us have learned to deny our feelings. We are no longer in touch with our emotional selves. Man, that paragraph out there all by itself totally defines and explains my childhood. And I think it explains a lot of our childhoods, a lot of the ways we were brought up. And I'm sure you guys are beginning to even think about things that were said to you by your parents. And I'm going to touch up on some of these things. What is this talking about? This learning to talk. Why is this important? Well, it's not just important to learn how to listen and communicate, but learning how to communicate effectively has everything to do with how you speak and how you talk and how you convey the messages. But it goes all the way back to our childhood. It goes all the way back to the way we were raised. And I think this is important for us to consider. when we're frustrated in our conversations, because most of us, most couples, most human beings have not been appropriately taught how to listen, but even more, have not appropriately been taught how to express and process their feelings and emotions, negative or positive, in a constructive and positive way. Most of us were squashed and damned and suppressed and taught to suppress our feelings and emotions. And so therefore we never developed the ability to appropriately deal with them or process them at any moment or in any given situation. And so what happens? What happens when a child is taught to, and they're moving into their teenage years, they're moving into their adult years? Well, what happens is that suppressed emotions, what they do is that when you hold it inside, it creates hostility inside of you, inside of your personality. Okay? Suppressed emotions create hostility, it creates insecurity, it creates insensitivity, and it creates desensitization. What does this mean? Well, welled-up feelings and emotions, okay, makes a person hostile. It builds it up and builds it up. When you don't know how to appropriately and in a healthy manner express your anger in a situation, if you don't know how to take that emotion and process it in a way that's constructive, that helps you identify your emotions and process them correctly, what we do is we push it inside and we just ignore it. But it didn't go away. That's the mistake that most people do, is they think that it's just because they're not paying attention to that anger that it just disappeared. No, that's a deception. That's a deception of the devil. That somehow, just because I ignored this emotion right now, that it just went away somewhere in cyberspace, and I don't have to deal with it no more. That has been the biggest trick. And what happens is that we ignore that emotion because we've been taught that it's not appropriate to express or process that emotion, and we just kind of put it in the back burner, and every time we do it, it piles on a little more anger, a little more anger, a little more anger, and it begins to create a hostile environment that's waiting for that next thing that just triggers you off, and boom, we blow up. We just explode, and at that moment that pushed us over the edge, suddenly every single time that you have pushed away your anger and emotion or suppressed it, suddenly comes up at that very moment, and we have an explosive just outbreak or outburst, of anger and hostility. Okay? And so most of our angry just outbreaks, most of our angry outbursts that just out of control, they're not just part of what just happened at that moment. Most of our angry outbursts that are just out of control and just ridiculous also come with a bunch of other angry emotions that have been piling up, for a moment now. And so we look and we see, whoa, calm down, hostile, you're overreacting. That's the word that we use. You're overreacting. Well, yeah, I'm overreacting because the intensity of my anger is not just about what happened right now, but it's about every single time it's happened in the past, but I've never processed that moment in a healthy and in a constructive way. And so it's just been piling up, waiting for this moment so I can blow up. Very important, guys. I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay? So suppressed emotions creates hostility inside of us. It creates insecurity. Okay? It creates our inability to trust. Okay? Because we've been holding on. We haven't been forgiving. We haven't been letting it go. We haven't been processing it. So we're insecure about whether we want to try again. And then what it also does, it just makes us insensitive. It makes us insensitive to other people's emotions. It makes us insensitive to other people because you have enough anger and you have enough emotions inside of you that you cannot deal with anybody else's emotions and anger. You cannot deal with it anymore. Okay? That your cup is full. And so it creates an insensitivity towards your spouse, and it debilitates and it cripples your ability to be sensitive to what they're going through at that moment. Why? Because you already have an overflowing cup of angry emotions that you've been dealing and carrying with because you don't know how to process them correctly. And so your spouse doesn't get what they need from you because you haven't processed what you needed to process. And then and vice versa, you cannot even deal with what they're going through no more because you have enough of yours to deal with. And it becomes a big mishmash. So all that suppressed emotion creates an insensitivity. And then it also creates a desensitization. It desensitizes you to what people are feeling at that moment. She can be depressed. He can be depressed. He can be so discouraged. They can be so just done and just in a dark place in their minds. And you're just desensitized to it. You have no compassion, no pity. You lose all that because you've been so unsensitive for so long and so insecure and so hostile that you've pushed yourself to a place where you don't even care about how your spouse feels anymore. You don't even care. That love doesn't even shine through no more. You've put that in the back burner, and you've come to a place where you just can care less, or maybe even happy that they're going through what they're feeling and they're experiencing ugliness. Maybe you're so angry and so resentful towards them because of this lack of communication that you're actually happy because of your resentment that they're actually struggling or going through something bad of their own. Ugly stuff. So this is something really, really important, guys. We need to learn how to talk. And in order to learn how to talk effectively, and we need to come to the root of this problem. What happens? Well, when as kids, when we're shown disapproval or dislike, okay, when kids show disapproval and dislike, there's a difference between showing disapproval and dislike for something as opposed to disobedience. Okay, when we're dealing with our kids, what does this mean? Well, we need to, as effective parents, we need to. I'm going to shift this a little bit because it goes back to our childhood, and we might be passing this on to our own children as parents. Is we haven't been taught how to appropriately differentiate between a child's disapproval and not liking what we're saying, and then versus their just blatant disobedience. Okay, there is a clear and fine line between both. It's important that we identify when a child is just simply just doesn't like what they're hearing or what you've told them to do, and disagrees, which at that point there's nothing wrong with it. They should be able to express to a certain extent that they don't like it, that they don't agree with it, that it bothers them, and there really shouldn't be any kind of response at this point. And this is something that I've had to learn myself. I'm learning now that it's okay. Let them express that they don't approve or they don't like what you're telling them to do. No, we're not going to like everything. You don't have to jump on them the moment they express disapproval of what you're telling them. The moment that we're supposed to jump on our kids and check them is when they've decided that they don't like what you're telling them and they've chosen to disobey what you've told them to do. So there's a fine line. And I wish I would have learned this earlier because, man, I totally screwed it up. Your kids and we, as well as kids, we should have been allowed to show a little bit of our disapproval or dislike. In a respectful way, of course. You know, if they're just straight up disrespecting you because they don't approve of it, then of course, you know, that's not acceptable. But if there's disapproval there, hey, if they want to march off and, you know, be all bummed out about it, fine, pick your battles, you know. But if they didn't approve of what you said, they don't like it, and they chose to disobey you, then that's a whole different ballgame. Disobedience is just not acceptable, and there's a different level of dealing with that. And so that is one of the main points as parents that we need to point out and make sure we're differentiating between disapproval and disobedience. This is one of the things that makes all the difference of whether or not we're teaching our kids how to process emotions and feelings in a positive way, and actually allow them to process them, and not just welt them up inside. Okay, if as a kid you were discouraged, or anytime you expressed your thoughts and feelings about a situation, if you were discouraged and condemned for it, this is probably why you have a hard time communicating, okay, with your spouse, and if they have a hard time communicating with you effectively and talking to you effectively, then you need to consider that that's probably also what happened to them. Okay, this comes to a place of understanding, guys. If we don't come to an understanding of why our spouse doesn't know how to listen, why our spouse never pays attention, why our spouse doesn't get it, it's probably because they had this type of experience or upbringing of they were discouraged and condemned for expressing any kind of disagreement, disapproval, or emotions. They were told, you cannot do this is not right, hold it inside. Okay, I'm going to go through and give some examples real fast that I remember of my upbringing. When I shown any kind of emotion towards a situation, towards disapproval of something I didn't like, these are kind of things that I remember my dad, my mom telling me. If you cry, I'm going to spank you. I know that you guys totally are connecting right now. If you cry, I'm going to spank you. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm just like, oh my God, how dumb is that? If they're crying, it's probably because they're already experiencing some kind of pain, some kind of emotion that's negative, something that's already causing them stress, something that's already making them sad. Why would you go inflict more pain on them by spanking them? Because they were already hurting or struggling with something. You see the contradiction and the ugliness of this. If you cry, I'm going to spank you. Or something else, stop crying like a little girl. Well, right there, that's already an ugly and negative message that for some reason that only girls cry. So first of all, is what they're trying to deliver, the message. That only girls cry, or only girls are allowed to cry. Okay? And if you cry, you're a little girl. You see, already two negative messages that were given to kids and are given to kids. These are things I remember, okay? And so these things are targeted towards suppressing feelings. Or another one, be a man and stop crying. Why? Because men don't cry? You see the negative message there? It's so ugly, okay? And so you're noticing all these statements that parents make are all teaching the kid to hold in their feelings, hold in their emotions. It's not okay to cry, you know? And they're associating manhood, becoming a man, with crying. And for some reason you cry in your life, if something hurts you, then if you express that hurt, then you're not a man. And that's just ridiculous. That's deceptive, that's evil. I mean, just in nature, that's really evil, because you're not allowing your child to cross over into manhood. You're not allowing him to develop into a man by telling him that a requirement to become a man is to not cry. You know, and that right there is really personal for me, because that, you know, really caused me to become a very angry person, a very hostile person, that even into my adulthood has had effects on me on levels that, man, they're still affecting me in the way I parent, in the way I deal with, you know, certain situations, and these are things that were taught as a kid. And so parents, this is really important for us to pay attention. And so not only with dealing with other people, but it's leaked into my marriage, it's leaked into my relationship, and so we're having to dismantle all of this drama and bad teaching that our parents taught us. And another one, stop being a sissy. That was another one that was taught to me. You know, stop being a sissy. You know, what does that qualify? What qualifies as a sissy? What? Showing some kind of emotion? You know, hurting, feeling, being human? Does that qualify me as a sissy? You know, well, no. And so, and one more is which I think is, again, just like if you cry, I'm going to spank you. If you get hurt, you're going to be in trouble. What the heck is that? If you get hurt, you're going to be in trouble. Why would I get in trouble for getting hurt? I'm already hurt. Why would I need to get more trouble? Isn't it enough trouble that I'm hurting? And so I'm just like baffled. As I was thinking about these statements, I'm like baffled because I'm just like, why would we do that? Why do we do that? And you know what? Subliminally, our parents taught us that, and we're passing that to our own kids. And so, guys, really, really pay attention to the things that we're saying and how we're communicating and helping our kids process feelings and emotions. I know that this is at the top of my priority because it's really, really brought conviction to my heart and how I've dealt with my kids, from the oldest to the youngest. Okay, so what is it saying? Pushing away emotions doesn't make them go away. It just temporarily allows you to ignore those emotions. Not good. Okay? And so second point on this learning how to talk is emotions should be processed in a healthy way. What does this look like? What does processing your emotions in a healthy way look like? Well, what it looks like is it's okay to acknowledge your feelings. Okay? It's okay to acknowledge your feelings, to stop and acknowledge what you're feeling at this moment. Something we're not taught. We're taught to ignore them and push them away. It's okay. Don't rush to react at the moment where you're feeling your emotion. Don't rush to react and don't rush to change how you're feeling at that moment. This is something that I've learned really, really good from my wife. I've observed this with her. She is so good at just, it might be suppressing her emotions, but she's so good at biting her tongue and holding herself back at the moment where she's feeling the most emotional, because she understands that at that moment, if she says something or does something, it's going to ruin and cause more problems. Man, I envy my wife for being able to do this, and I am learning that is such a great technique, and I need to learn that and employ that into my own life and my own character. And so, how do you process emotions in a healthy way? You acknowledge them because it's okay, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to feel, and you don't rush to react during that time. Don't react at that time because you're probably your logic is just distorted and messed up. Emotional times are not good time to make big decisions, and don't rush to change how you feel. Okay, most people want to change instantly. Oh my gosh, somebody's looking at me. No, that's the next point. Don't suppress your feelings or run to change it right away because you're scared of what people might say or think, or you're embarrassed. That's another thing that our parents teach us is how to be scared of expressing ourselves or embarrass us because we're expressing ourselves. Man, that is so crippling to a child, and it becomes a crippling thing into their adulthood. Okay, and so it's okay to process your emotions in a healthy way. Another way, identify and develop a plan to communicate negative emotions. We have to come to a place where we are able to identify emotions and learn how to develop a good way to how to express those emotions. Most of the times we pop off and we begin to express emotions in an uncontrolled, unchecked way, which bring us more problems and break down relationships and cause arguments and fights because we have responded emotionally in a discontrolled and unchecked manner. Identify your emotions and learn to try to establish a way of how to process them. Okay? One good thing that the book talks about is how to voice your thoughts. Okay? And there's a difference. It makes a difference between voicing your thoughts and expressing your feelings. Okay? Having an awareness of your emotions and identifying your emotions is much different from just being aware of the situation in general. Okay? It's really important for us. Most of us, if you say, what do you feel about this situation? We don't say what we feel about the situation. We start giving our thoughts about the situation and what it should look like and how it should have been. Okay, most of us, we don't even know how to listen to that question. What do you feel about this situation? What that question is asking is, what are your emotions behind this situation? I'm not asking you to give me your thoughts and your strategies of how to fix the situation or what you would have done in this scenario. The question is, how do you feel? And most of us don't even capture that. We don't capture because we don't know. We don't automatically run to how do we feel. We run to how do we fix, And so there is a difference between voicing your thoughts and voicing and expressing your feelings. And this is very important when we're learning how to talk to our spouses. Men, especially men, but also women who were not allowed to express themselves in a healthy way as kids. We need to learn how to express our feelings because there's nothing wrong with it. And we just have to learn how to be aware of our feelings and emotions to effectively express them and communicate them in a positive way, in a constructive way that helps our marriage and our conversation. And so there's an exercise that the book talks about, and it says, and note this down, it says 3 times a day, write down your emotions and have one category of your emotions and have the other category of the situation that caused that emotion. Okay? So this is the exercise. 3 times a day, maybe in the morning around 9 o'clock, noon, and 3 o'clock, or whatever time you get. At that time, sit down, and create a column that says situation and then emotion. Okay? Label it situation and emotion. And then at 9 o'clock, sit down and think about the last 3 hours and think about the things that have happened in those last 3 hours and pick the situation that happened and the emotion that it created inside of you. Just simple. Do that all day. And do that for a few days. Do it for a week, every day. And then sit down and make some time with your spouse and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this. And sit down and express to them, say, look, on this day, at this time in the morning, this happened. And this is the emotion that I felt. Then this happened, and this is the emotion that I felt. Then this happened, this is the emotion I felt. And what we're doing is we're learning to identify the situation, and not just identify the situation and go straight to fixing it, but we're learning to identify the situation, identify the emotion with it, and then processing it in a healthy manner to develop a good plan to respond and fix the situation. Okay? And what this is teaching us, it's teaching us how to respond to our wives, to our husbands, in a more controlled, emotional way, that we are able to communicate our emotions in an effective, controlled way with love and not out of control with anger. Okay? And not only that, but we're learning how to listen for their emotions and their feelings. Okay, so this exercise, sit down, identify your emotions, identify the situation, and then talk to your spouse about it. And spouses, be willing to listen to them because they're learning how to express their emotions, and not only that, but identify your emotions in any given situation. Okay, and then moving to the last section here, learn to reveal or express yourself in a healthy, productive way. Okay, what do I mean? Okay, quick example, tailgaters. People that tailgate me, man, they make me angry. Okay, and I'm giving you a personal expression of this, of how to reveal myself and how to express myself in a healthy, productive way. Tailgaters make me angry. When they're tailgating me, man, I have a choice. I have a choice to either respond or react to the situation. Okay, what happens? Well, if I just react, then instantly I become dumb in my thinking, and instantly want to go into the reaction that's going to get me in trouble. Okay, but what I've learned to do by identifying my emotions at that moment, okay, I've identified my anger for that tailgater. And so that allows me to remember that my anger is going to cause some consequences if I choose to react to my anger. Okay? And identifying my anger at that moment and how I feel because of this tailgater allows me to think about the consequences if I react in anger, and think about how it's going to ruin my testimony and my Christian faith with other people. If I make a stupid decision right now because of my anger, it's going to bring consequences that I don't want and ruin my influence and my testimony for those who look up to me, starting with my family. Okay? And so identifying my emotion at that moment in that situation, okay, allows me to identify the consequences of my anger and the ruining of my faith. And then it reminds me of how I'm going to ruin my family if I respond to that emotion in an unhealthy way. Okay? And furthermore, being able to identify that anger also allows me to remember that I am a Christian. And if I don't remember, my wife makes sure to remind me, if she's there, that I am a Christian. And therefore, I need to let Christ and His nature and His love respond to this situation as opposed to my humanity. So I hope you guys see that there. Identifying my emotion of anger, just simply identifying that moment that I feel angry right now, and I want to just react to this dumb person behind me, but I also need to think about my consequences to that anger, the consequences to my faith, the consequences to my family, and the consequences to my life. And then that allows me to settle down and think about how a Christian will react and how Christ wants me to react. And that's just a small example, okay? And so I got to get going here. I hope you guys take this. I hope it's good, to your mind, to your heart, and you capture this. Again, get the book, read. There's more and so much more to read. And Friday, I will be back with the final portion to love language number 2. And we'll see you on Friday. God bless you all. Pray for me. I love you. And thank you for tuning in. Love you, babe. Take care. All right. Bye.